Hey everyone, this is Sophia, and welcome back to Modern Muses. Today I'm joined by someone very special who has journeyed through the worlds of classical music, mindfulness, and self inquiry in a way that's honestly nothing short of fascinating. My very good friend Daniel Brottman began his career as a classical musician, studying French horn and music composition, and immersing himself in the very intense world of classical music. But his path took a very unexpected turn, and now he has over a decade of meditation experience and even 6 months in silent retreats. So if you were ever wondering, how do I do this meditation thing? I've never done that before. Or if you're wondering, how do I be more disciplined and do it in a way that is sustainable and not forcing myself? Or if you're a little bit curious about people who do psychedelics and how that's helped them on their spiritual journey, look no further because we go into some very interesting conversations about all of these things. You are definitely going to get something out of this episode. I know I did. I feel so honored to know someone like Daniel who built his practice brick by brick. So join me in welcoming my good friend, Daniel Brottman.
Sophia, excuse me.
Daniel!
Hi, good
Hello,
to see you.
Daniel. So good to see you, friend.
Thanks, Sophia. You too. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
I, of course, well, first of all, I just wanted to say you seem to be living the very nomadic lifestyle right now. So where are you right now?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado at the
Okay, and are
moment.
you gonna be settled for a while, or is the nomadic thing like a forever vision?
I wouldn't say. I mean, it's an unknown. There, there's not a plan to travel forever, and there's not a plan to not travel forever. But I am there are plans to keep traveling for at least another 6 months, probably more, but we'll see. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, because I would consider myself like semi-nomadic because I like right now I'm in France and I travel a ton both for work and pleasure.
yeah.
And boy, sometimes it really wears me down and I have a hard time kind of feeling grounded. So I was wondering how that felt for you or if for you it's actually really energy giving.
I wonder if it might be a little different because I'm, like, driving around the US, and I'm guessing
Mm,
you're doing more, like, flying or so I have all my stuff with me, so I'm kind of taking my home with me as I go places, and, um,
okay.
so that might make it a little easier, but there has been it at the same time, like, there has been an increasing sense of feeling like home is wherever I go.
Mm.
Uh, there's
Yeah, I'm
been
trying to
Uh-huh.
find that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's really I have to admit it's really hard for me. I have a little puppy on my lap. I'm not gonna lift him up right now because he's sleeping, but he's kind of my
Aw.
little piece of home that I take everywhere.
Oh, he comes
And
with you.
he does, yeah. And I think without him, I would actually crumble.
That's
But
sweet.
cool. I'm glad that it's working for you and that you're having so many cool adventures. I think the
Thank you.
last time I saw you in the flesh was probably our Eastman School of Music graduation, right?
Yeah, around
That's
that year
crazy.
somewhere. Yeah, so
Yeah.
20 I left Easton 2014,
Yeah, me too.
so 11 years.
We it's crazy.
Yeah,
And back then, we were just musical collaborators. I was
uh-huh.
singing some of your compositions, you were a
Mhm,
horn player, you were
mhm.
also conducting, right? You were conducting,
I wasn't
composing.
yet, I started doing that a few years later. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I would never have thought that a decade later we'd be reconnecting on a spiritual plane.
I know, me
And
neither.
I'm really excited about that because it's funny cuz I almost never use Facebook. Facebook for
Mhm.
me is yeah, I go on there when I have to communicate with certain people on Messenger and stuff. And
Yeah.
the few times that I wander across my timeline or whatever, what's it called? The page where like all the
Mhm.
updates of your friends are, I forget what it's called. But once in a while, I would see a post by you, either a Twitter, a tweet
Yeah, right.
repost, or something. And I can't even tell you exactly what they said. I don't remember the exact quotes, but I remember a feeling I had every
Yeah.
time I saw them. And I thought, oh my gosh, Daniel's cooking. Like, I don't know what he's doing. But they really I was like, "Oh, damn, yeah, he spoke." Like that like it was very clear to me that you were on a journey that was really profound and really special. And I think it really spoke to me because I don't remember exactly when I would see these posts, but I think definitely I was either looking for something like that or I was
Mhm.
currently involved in some kind of spiritual journey, and it just really, really resonated with me, the feeling of your posts and the journey you were on. So I'm so happy to be connecting with you on this, but I'm curious, when we were at Eastman, was
Mhm.
this already something you were embarking on, or did this like start
Mm.
way earlier, way later? Like when did this all start?
I would say it's actually was just beginning. I mean, in some, obviously in some sense, it's
Ever
at
present.
right, at least as long as this lifetime. Um, but there's a very important beginnings happening because it was around my junior senior year of undergrad when I started getting interested in meditation. Um,
Okay.
it was really gradual. I mean, there was a book I read by John Kabat-Zinn that was very impactful, very motivating for me. Just a book about mindfulness and just
Mhm.
approaching life in a mindful way with, equanimity and meeting things as they are. And I remember just having the feeling like, whoa, these people like figured out how to live. This is crazy. And so that kind of started my interest. But then there were many years of the practice being on and off until slowly gathering momentum and motivation and learning things from other podcasts and books before I eventually started going on silent retreats, which was another huge like step forward in my motivation and dedication.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to the silent retreats because I'll be honest, I'm so like even just the idea of them makes me feel
Mm,
a bit claustrophobic. It's so intimidating to me. I
mhm.
wonder, I'm not close to it. I wonder if it's something, if the right invitation, the right calling time and place, but it just yeah. Anyway, we'll get to that. But
Great.
I'm curious, was there anything in your early life? Like what do you think allowed you to even find and hear this calling? Like, because you grew up, where did you grow up?
Outside Chicago.
Oh, yeah, right. You were
Yeah,
outside of Chicago, right?
yeah.
And was there any early influences to spirituality, wellness that this journey piggybacks off of?
Not much really comes to mind. My family was, like, Reformed, Jewish, like, not particularly spiritual. I
Mhm.
really didn't enjoy going to Sunday school.
Okay.
I had my bar mitzvah, and later that night, I had a conversation with my sister where I was like, "Yeah, I'm an atheist." Like, stopped to think about it for the first time.
Mhm.
S So I had a very much, like I mean, I guess, yeah, speaking of the atheist piece, like, around whatever middle school, junior high school was, like I was really into that, and looking back, I feel like it was kind of in a way, a good starting point for a spiritual journey because it was a stepping out of assumptions. It was like, "Oh, all these assumptions I've been told, that doesn't." And then I didn't see how I was stepping into a new set of assumptions and so I was beginning the path of following the breadcrumbs to what is true, actually. But, yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, maybe if I could magically re-experience parts of my childhood now, I'd be like, "Oh, there it is."
No, no, but it's actually it resonates with me as well because I'm Puerto Rican, so I grew up in a
Mhm.
pretty traditionally
Mm, mhm.
Latino Catholic household, and I hated going to church. I
Yeah.
hated like just couldn't wait. I would hear the bells of like the ice cream man outside, and I was just like,
Mm.
once I get the Eucharist, that's my signal that like this is almost done and I can go get an ice cream. And I really it wasn't a Catholicism for me was not a refuge. It was not something that I took any peace in coming back to during hard times or anything. I just didn't, even though I went to Catholic school, I went to,
Mm.
I had to do church twice a week and all these things, just didn't resonate with me. I don't know why. And I think I also went through kind of I think at Eastman also I would have identified more closely to atheism.
Amazing.
And I really was Eastman was, like, a very critical, like, thinking time for me. I was,
Mm.
like, abandoning very similarly, I was like, "Well, I didn't choose any of these things. These things were
Mhm.
chosen for me. I just grew
Mhm.
up in them and other people chose them. Well, I wanna choose. I wanna
Mhm.
decide who I am and, do I want to have kids one day? Do I want to get married?
Mhm.
Do I want to be Catholic? And I started
Yeah.
thinking about all these things, but definitely for me, meditation and spirituality came much later. What triggered it for me was very obvious. I went through a horrendous breakup, like
I'll do it.
in a world-shattering breakup,
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah,
bad.
yeah.
Then I was like, I don't have this refuge. I don't look to
Mhm.
God.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel I had a space of healing really. And
Yeah.
so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna try this. I had dabbled a little bit in the Netherlands tantra scene, which is
Okay.
very pleasant, but more, I would say, Western tantra.
Or
So,
like
not
neo-tantra maybe, or
exactly neo
yeah, yeah.
tantra, not really based in a specific spirituality. It's more
Mhm.
based on like connection aims.
Yeah, right, which is
Yeah,
great,
yeah,
but
yeah. Yeah, it is great, but I did feel I needed something deeper, and so then I went into a more specific dharma-based practice.
yeah.
So I'm curious, you said you had a period where you were kind of, developing on and off. Like, was there an event that really catapulted you into uh, a hardcore silent retreats, hardcore practice?
I think it was pretty gradual, but one that came to mind actually was also a difficult breakup, that's such a good ti an early 20s breakup, there's nothing like it, right, you know?
Nothing like it, yeah.
Like, it still sucks now, but it's not the same.
It's like when your first dog dies.
You're right, I haven't had a dog, but I would imagine, yeah.
The
Yeah.
first one was also, like, life-shattering, and
Yeah,
then
I
after
would
that,
think
it gets
so.
it's still sad, but it's, like, nothing like the first one. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So there was a time when I was helping move this ex, and had been overseas for a while. We got back together. We did this road trip to move her into a new city, and it was like I was just like just drowning. And I was by myself for a while, and I was like, I remember maybe this is maybe a few years into my on and off practice. And I was like, I got to try that again. And I just sat down for like 5 minutes, and it was like relief. I think
Mm.
there was something about the mind being so exhausted that, it was given permission to let go, and it didn't have the energy to keep fighting. And then it was like at the 5-minute time went off, and I was like, I'm gonna do 10 more minutes. And then September, and like, so there was some faith there, and then it was still, and then there were just lots of ups and downs. I mean, in the early days, the 10% Happier podcast was very
Mm, mhm.
motivating for me. And I really needed to be met in a place of some amount of like materialism and science. And like, that's not all that was speaking to me, but like, I wouldn't have been able to start with Tibetan Tantra. It just would
Right.
have bounced right off of me. And so the insight
Mhm, mhm.
meditation tradition was well suited for me where I was at, because it wasn't asking me to do anything other than look at what was plainly in front of my nose to begin with. And then things get crazier the deeper you go.
Okay.
But
So the very first steps for you was insight meditation,
yeah.
and can
Yeah.
you just
hmm
describe what that is exactly?
Yeah, sure. Insight meditation is a term that's used to refer to a sort of tradition that's been in the West for 50, 60 years. That itself comes from Theravada Buddhism and early Buddhism in general. And there's a handful of figures who people might recognize: Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, Jack Kornfield, etc., who founded centers like Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts and Spirit Rock in California, which is where my first retreat was. There's also Gaia House in England is often considered part of this tradition too, and there's a bunch of other smaller centers. So it's sort of like one of the ways that Theravada, in particular Buddhism, has developed in the West.
Okay. And what does it look like then to do a 5-minute practice? Is it mostly breathing or observation, or what are you doing exactly in those 5 minutes?
It could look like a lot of things. So I would say like within insight meditation is any technique of early Buddhism or of the modern day Theravada schools, which are not necessarily even the same as 2,600 years ago.
Mhm.
So it could be following the breath, classic, it's classic for a reason. It could be just sitting with the whole sensations of the body, feeling or doing a body scan bit by bit, or being open to all six sense doors, including the mind, or cultivating loving kindness or compassion. or, yeah, just noting what's happening. There's breathing happening, and there's anger, there's planning, there's an itch, etc. Or looking into, yeah, I could go on.
Yeah, I've tried quite a few of these, so it does feel like those are the building blocks of like any practice. Like if someone wanted to start somewhere, just sitting down for 5 minutes, breathing, and letting thoughts come and go without judgment or action, just being
Mhm.
in that state. Yeah, very
Yeah.
good place to start. Do you feel like, because this is something I really struggle with, it feels like there are more and more societal influences that make it very hard to do that, to do any of
Mhm.
these things. Like even just sitting down for 5 minutes in silence was obviously much easier 100 years ago than it is today. And I'm wondering for you, what your opinion is on the current modern day structures and modern day influences that make it difficult to have a practice or participate in a practice.
Yeah. I think we have things working for us and things working against us. Honestly, I think there's a lot to be extremely grateful for about our current moment too. And it's the only moment I know, so I'm only
Yeah.
projecting when I think about, oh, it was so much easier 1,000 years ago. Maybe it wasn't. I mean, they had
Yeah,
a lot more sickness and a lot less food security, and I think,
that's true.
so who can really say? And um we have so much access to really incredible quality instruction and diversity of tradition, which is can also be a double-edged sword because you can get into hungry ghost. I have to get this, I have to get that, I have to get
Yeah, yeah.
every possible teaching. But yeah, so I guess I sometimes I'm a I can doom spiral, but I tend to have a bit of an optimistic, like, at least with my green tea in the morning, I feel like, oh, there's so much that's wonderful about now. So yeah, there's
Yeah, but we need more of that. We need more of that. I'm happy to
yeah,
hear it. I
yeah,
please tell me more of the things that you think are actually working towards us. Or working for us. Like I think
yeah.
that's fantastic
Well,
news.
one of them is social media. Obviously, everything is a double-edged sword. But that's why we're talking now. That's why we were able to find each other again. And you mentioned that I would cross post tweets like 2.5 years ago or so. I kind of stumbled into this scene on Twitter, this huge scene of people who it's very broad. There's no one defining characteristic of this subculture or whatever, but there's quite a lot of people who are very into dharma or very into various types of spirituality or inner work or every psychotechnology modality under the sun. That's like a and it's connected me with so many incredible people, incredible ideas, incredible teachers, incredible friends. This is where I'm staying right now. I'm staying at the house of a friend who I met on Twitter, and I'm staying here.
That's amazing.
So that's one of the things that I think we really have going for us is like the ability to find the others and to find the wisdom is more available than I think it's probably ever been. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But
And what you're pointing to also is this intentional use. I mean, like you
yeah,
said, you can go into social media, you can go into a lot of things in life, and how you interact with these things is going to determine which side of the sword you get. And sounds like you're
yeah,
very intentional with your use of social media.
I would say so. Like when I first started really getting into Twitter, I realized like, whoa, this is such good right speech practice, wise speech. One of the steps of the Eightfold Path, blah blah blah. But really, it's like you know, I had a relationship with Twitter before that was like, people would call it the hell site because, it's easy to get kind of snarky and mean and no one's seeing my face and whatever.
Yeah.
And when I started finding like lots of people who I really wanted to interact with, gave me extra motivation to be like, whoa, I can really practice. What's my motivation and everything I'm saying? Not only is it like true in like the literal not lying sense, but like, is it authentic? Is it coming from a place of defensiveness or of generosity, goodwill? And that's been great practice. And like, I would venture to say that's like part of the energy that authenticity and goodwill and vulnerability. That's part of why, like, I also am not so big into Facebook, but I keep cross posting there when I remember to from Twitter because I'm like, there's a lot of people here, and it's nice to spread this energy here too. If that doesn't sound too
I'm not
conceited or
on
something.
Twitter.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
right,
on Twitter.
exactly.
So I was very grateful that you posted there because I would not have seen it.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're right. And if you're someone who is intentionally using these tools and you are also using them to spread good, I mean,
mhm.
we definitely need more of that, especially now. Why do you think so if you came across someone who has never meditated, or I mean, a lot of people don't meditate. A lot of people
Mhm.
don't have any kind of practice. What would be your elevator pitch as to why we should be doing some kind of practice?
You gave me some free interview questions, and I saw this one, and I was like, maybe this sounds like a nitpick, but I wouldn't say anyone should meditate. The should is I will I want to excise the should.
Yeah, please do.
Because, like, in a sense, meditation practice is about realizing that there is no should. This is one frame. There is no
Mm,
should. There's no way things should be. There's no way I should be. There's no way this moment should look. And so to start from I should meditate, not that that's never happened, like, of course, probably most people, probably almost everyone has some degree of I should meditate who gets into it, maybe not everyone. And then that should gets worn away and it evolves into I want to be
mhm.
practicing in the way that serves me. So I guess the reason I'm like blowing this up, this little point, is just to say that, like, I would offer it as like, here are the reasons one might want to meditate. These are the possibilities, and if there is if you do sense a should, I should meditate. That doesn't mean that therefore I shouldn't. That's just another should. I shouldn't with my should. So okay, go.
No, no, you make a very no, no, but you make a very, very fair point, because the nuance in that is that you want your self-actualization to be something that comes from a genuine place and a desiring place and a gentle
Yeah,
place, not a
yeah,
forced,
yeah.
I have to be this because of external pressures or whatever. So it is a well noted correction. So I will rephrase. What are some of the benefits one might be called to
Yeah.
in participating in meditation or some kind of practice?
Extremely gracious of you, Sophia, with much gratitude for your grace. And this question, I just wrote an essay about this recently because but still my mind just goes like, it's like, how do I possibly? So, but let's like get a little bit more specific than just that. If one is interested in a more spacious relationship with life, with literally everything, that might be a reason to be interested in meditation. If one wants to cultivate patience, generosity, compassion, goodwill towards themselves and towards others, connection with themselves and others, those might be reasons one might be interested in meditation. If one wants to learn the distinction between thoughts as true stories that are describing the present moment and just like sensory phenomenon that are arising that are not me, that I don't have to feel. I can take responsibility for them, and that I'd say is strengthened too by practice even, but I don't have to feel like they define me, my thoughts define me, more than any of my sensations define me. Yeah, I can keep, like, sitting in silence and letting more things bubble up, but you're also welcome to jump in on any of that.
Yeah, no, I
Mm,
I I wanted to give you space to find what you're called to, and I can also share what it's been for me in
amazing.
quite frankly, a very young practice. Definitely this idea of spaciousness gives me that when I think about spaciousness, because that can sound like a very ambiguous term to have spaciousness with all
True.
things. But for me, at least, this idea of spaciousness gives me room to interact and engage with the world the way I want to, and that aligns with who I want to be and who I am cultivating. So sometimes I feel like the things of the world, all the people, the news, all these influences, external factors, they sometimes feel like they are just touching my skin at all times. And I'm in a
Agree.
very reactionary state all
Yeah.
the time. And I can't breathe. I just react to the world.
Mhm.
This idea for me of spaciousness that I've really been able to get in touch with through meditation is this feeling that everything's a little bit further away, which
For
gives
sure.
me the space to decide with peace and calm and tranquility how I'm going to interact with
Yeah.
that thing, how I'm going to let it in or not let it in, or, you know, have an empowered choice about my relationship with these
Yeah.
things, that nothing is put upon me. It is something that I can, with peace, flow
Yeah.
through. Um, but yeah, for me, meditation has also been because, with the specific dharma that I've been following, which is the Shangpa Kagyu tradition. I don't know
Okay.
if you're
I'm familiar with
familiar, but
yeah. not that
Well, the
particular,
idea yeah,
but
yeah, sure.
I'm aware of what the Kagyu is. Tibetan Buddhism is so far my least filled out
Okay.
area of knowledge. So I know the Kagyu is
Yeah.
one of the four major schools, and I don't know this particular lineage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, so the only to say that it uses a 5 chakra system, and we spent a lot of time meditating on elements specifically, and at
Ah, yeah.
first this was such a weird thing for me to wrap my brain around. This we're gonna meditate on this particular from this particular chakra because that chakra contains a specific elemental wisdom, but you don't know what the wisdom is, and you're just going to interact with it openly without judgment. And I mean, it's really amazing how over time things do start to come to you and you are
Mm,
in enough silence and enough intention to just let things come to you. And I started noticing that by just being open to my brain becoming quiet and letting things come with the intention of working with that element, or because
mhm.
each element also has a specific energy or attribute that it generates, and it also has like a poison or something that it's
Mm,
purifying.
mm.
Just having that intention and then shutting the brain off and just seeing what happens. I was so shocked at how effective this was in not actively trying to find wisdom, but kind of just letting things be and realizing that your mind and your spiritual body, they're all kind of, if you're quiet enough, you'd be surprised how much of
Yeah.
the wisdom or how much of the answers kind of just come to you in those moments.
Yeah, that's cool to hear about. That particular practice isn't something I've engaged in, but there are elements of it that feel very familiar to me. Yeah, right. Coming back, this began with you speaking about spaciousness, and it's like in my language, I would say the deeper wisdom and intentions, our truer intentions, and our deeper wisdom are often just very subtle and quiet. And any of these techniques that allow for this spaciousness, for this, you could say, distance between objects in me is one way you put it. And it's at the same time, it's also intimacy and closeness with objects and me is what allows this deeper love, this deeper wisdom. Sometimes even just mundane. Often, very frequently, people experience just not even big spiritual thoughts, but just some insight about what's happening in my relationships or my life or my psychology bubbles up too, and then it just keeps getting deeper into insights about the nature of this human life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did see this post actually that you sent me. I didn't go through it super thoroughly, but I had read your what one might be called to in a practice, but
Yeah,
you also had a list of, what not to expect, or how did you word it? Like things that meditation's
yeah,
not good for.
yeah. Yeah, there were two. One of the other sections was just like failure modes or like ways that it, it over, I don't know, ways that a meditation practice can sometimes get a little funky. And then, yeah, another list of things that meditation practice is not good for, or maybe not the go-to tool for, or you wouldn't, or it might help with this, but you can't assume that it will help with, for example, relational practice, things like circling or authentic relating or, um, gosh, there was a whole huge list, all kinds of, shadow work and certain types of psychology things. And there's many elements of things that I think we are often, and I was going to say should we be interested? I don't know, but things that we might be interested in if we're interested in developing ourselves in a way that is really fulfilling and of service and blah, 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 that a meditation practice might leave buried and not get to.
Right. You mentioned something also that I've heard a lot of people speak about, which is spiritual bypassing. How would you define spiritual bypassing? What does that look like?
Yeah, it can look a lot of different ways. In terms of like meditative skills specifically, it can look like there's a meditative skill of collecting the mind in what's called samadhi or concentration, and it's very pleasant. And it's a way of not letting things bother the mind. The mind is gets totally content with exactly what's here. And then in the Buddhist conception, the use of this is, aside from it just being very nourishing for the heart, it also allows the mind to see more clearly into the nature of consciousness and to then gain insight about what's happening. So, but if some people are very, very good at concentration, and it's sort of a skill that, there's sort of an aptitude for it that varies across people. And so it's possible to learn very strong concentration and kind of concentrate your feelings away. It's like, I don't need to worry about this feeling, but that feeling
Mm.
is actually saying something really important about your relationships or your desires in life or something like that. So that's one form of spiritual bypassing. Another form is having gained a lot of insight into the empty nature of all phenomenon. One can see that there's, things might be unpleasant, but I've gotten so good at removing the suffering from something being unpleasant, or removing the suffering from the clinging around something being pleasant, another kind of suffering, that again, I'm not listening to the messages of this
Mm.
experience. And then there's other types that are just like, like maybe from like a more like a caricature of a new age sort of sensibility of like love and light and everything's good and we're not going to look at anything bad. And that's not even using any meditative skills. That's just a view that
Yeah.
everything should be
Yeah.
happy, And so that's
Right.
that's another kind of spiritual bypassing too.
Yeah. And have you ever had any experiences where your whole anything in your practice started to go in a direction that you had to correct or that you had to kind of address and make some
Yeah,
changes?
yeah, what a great question. There's always course corrections kind of happening because it's a process of feeling around in the dark and experimenting. And I think I've been, I guess, sort of fortunate that I don't feel there's been any major. I wasn't accidentally sucked into a cult for 5 years, or I, didn't like cause horrendous abuse before people stopped me, or all of these things happen. But there are some ideas that like I kind of learned and then had to unlearn. Like I went to one retreat style early in my practice that was very focused on absolute stillness, and it just had a very like the way it landed on my system was it encouraged a lot of striving and like just do itness. And so I used a lot of like harshness as motivation,
Mhm.
and in some ways that helped my practice. Like you can force certain things, but you cause some damage in the doing of that forcing. So then there later had to be an unlearning of it's okay to move if I need to move, and actually the kindness is more important than the focus, and so on. And then it keeps, it's like it can be like a pendulum. It's like then I was at a Zen monastery in August of last year for a month, and that's another school that has a lot of value on absolute stillness and sitting. And coming back to it after I had been in the school of like, no, you got to move when you want to move. It was like practicing for a month where it was like, no, we got to be still. Like it rebalanced something for me again. It was like, "Oh, it is actually really good here to have a certain kind of discipline." But so oftentimes things pendulate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask a little bit about this because I saw some of on your Substack, you posted your schedule for one of the retreats you did. It was
Mhm.
rigorous. I mean,
Yes.
these are this was a schedule that started at like 4:30 in the morning and
Yeah.
ended at like 10:30 at
10.
night.
Yeah, yeah.
And you had multiple sessions. I mean, almost the entire day is broken up into these segments of like formal meditations,
Even
sitting meditations, walking meditations. I mean, I could feel my body kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. And I'm curious how? Like, just give me any insight on this because it
yeah.
just seems so like what you're saying about, yes, I hear you when you say that it's about the kindness and the letting go and to, give yourself what you need. But also, I mean, I mean,
Yeah.
there must be some discipline and how do you stay that disciplined in such a schedule? And how do you do discipline without that forced feeling?
Yeah. Yeah. I love this topic. That retreat I will say was the strictest and like most challenging retreat that I've ever done.
And remind me again, I think it was called
It's called Boundless
that retreat.
Refuge.
Boundless Refuge. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and I do have fond feelings for it and for the teacher who is a friend of mine. It's a very small retreat. It's a retreat that happens every spring. It's actually starting a couple weeks from now as we're recording this, and it's a 3-month long retreat in this remote, beautiful location in California. And okay, but so to get to the question, there's so many pieces. I hope I can remember all of them. uh,
Take your time.
yeah, thank you. Okay, so there's different types of containers we can put ourselves in. That was a and there's different ways that we can support the boundaries of that container. Um, a strong container like that is supported by the sangha, the people who you're practicing with, were all following the schedule together. That makes it a lot easier to stay in the schedule. And things like, ritual can make container a lot stronger. Chanting the same texts every day at a retreat like that, or there wasn't so much of this at that retreat, but it was a Zen influenced retreat. And at the Zen monastery I mentioned a moment ago, the day is full of times where we all chant this before the meal, and you bow before you enter the hall, you bow when you reach your seat in the hall, you bow across your seat from the hall, you bow and like, so all that kind of thing. There's ways of scaffolding this, but I want to get to the broader point of how do you balance this gentleness with what is the joy of discipline? How do you have discipline? Um, um,
All coming at you at once.
I
I'm
just
very excited to hear what you have to say, though. No, sorry,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, I had so much excitement and nervousness because I feel a responsibility to communicate this well because I think it's really important and
It is.
um
Well, no pressure, but
yeah.
it is a something I'm very curious about because I think most people, myself very much included, even in doing this podcast, I struggle very much with this feeling of, I mean, with discipline in the sense of what I have to do, all of the tasks.
Yeah.
And I think most people feel somehow crushed by anything that needs to be done with a certain amount of routine or regularity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you love the outcome, you love the vision, you love certain aspects of it, but to do something with a routine that's especially a rigorous
Yeah.
one is super tough. And
Yeah.
I'm very curious how you go from even what you corrected before, this feeling of I should do something,
Right.
I have to do something, to I'm called to do something, I want to do it.
Yeah.
It's energetic in a more positive way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it would be nice if it worked entirely to be like I wake up every day, I have no plan. I just follow my impulse completely every moment. And in a sense that's sort of possible, but often what that leads to is like, oh gosh, I don't feel good. I'm not exercising or doing any kind of practice and I'm just scrolling all day or whatever. And so like it's easy for lowest common denominator, like what's it called? Like instant gratification things to start kind of ruling the day. And so then an impulse might arise. I've seen this doesn't work. I actually could, I don't know, brush my teeth every morning. I could commit to something, or I could commit to a 5-minute meditation practice a day, or I could commit to, and that feels good. So there's a Pali word, I don't know what the Sanskrit word is, but adhitthana, which gets translated like determination or resolve. And when I first learned this word, I was told it meant just like, yeah, just like make a strong determination, like I'm gonna do this. And like that's where it can get into like I'm just going to whip myself to make sure I do this. But my understanding, and there was a wonderful Dharma talk I heard at Insight Meditation Society from Carol Wilson about this. So I want to just like bow to her and thank her for putting this into words for me because it's been so useful. That's sort of like a near enemy of adhitthana or resolve. But true adhitthana is when the mind and the heart sees I have the capacity to commit to this and it would feel good and it would be of benefit. It would be wholesome and I want to, so I do.
Mm.
And it's the difference between like, yeah, I should have this schedule, this commitment, and I want to. And so then as the faith in what I'm committing to grows, the willingness to do it, the trust that it's of value, I'm able to make stronger and stronger commitments. And I use various things to help me remember the commitment to keep the container. So like my mom's a practitioner as well. And we've had this very loose practice for years now. We just text each other whenever I sat this morning for an hour, I texted her 60. and and there's no like accountability or like, oh, you didn't sit this today. But it's just a little tiny thing that like adds a little bit. It's nice to text her. It's nice to hear about her practice. It's nice for her to once in a while say, wow, you're doing great. So like that's a very, very fine layer of the container that helps me maintain my daily practice. It's not like a crucial, like if that was gone, I would still be okay. But it's one of those things that's nice. And then if there's like, whoa, I really want to, like the first time I went on, well, the only time so far I've gone on a 3-month retreat was like, what, like what? what on earth would this be like? Like every time I had done more retreat, I'd done longer retreats. Even when I had done a 3-week retreat at that point, I was like, still feel like there's more I could get from being in that retreat practice for longer. So it wasn't an easy decision in some ways, but there was that sense of like, I want to see what happens if I commit to being there. And
Hmm.
then, it's not that there were no times during the 3-month retreat that I wanted to go home, but I had committed to this container and there was a certain amount of resistance around leaving. It was possible to leave. I could have told them any day of the week, I want to go. And they'd been like, okay, that's what's nice about a meditation retreat as opposed to like an ayahuasca ceremony. You can just walk away in the middle if you really need to. um,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm not sure it'll happen, but I was actually set to do an ayahuasca
uh,
ceremony in South Africa in a few weeks. But
oh,
we're
South
gonna get to that
Africa.
topic.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I look forward to it.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask because at this retreat you said that you were also finding your intention
Yeah.
behind, because of course to do such a like what you're saying, to do something like this that even for me or for an outsider just seems like you needed, like my assumption or someone else's assumption would be, man, you must have some serious discipline. Like you can really make yourself force yourself to do some really tough things. And what I'm hearing you say is that actually you found this, you used the word authenticity,
Yeah.
which I really liked, and this idea
Mm,
that like by committing to your authenticity of not just who you are today, but also thinking about what you open yourself up to, like what
mm,
transformation and what future version, what evolution of you are also open to. I wanted to hear you speak a bit on this idea of authenticity because just like you said about like spiritual bypassing or a double-edged sword, a lot of people, I think, use authenticity as a reason why they shouldn't do something else or try something new or, that's just not for me. I'm not that person. I don't, And I'm curious for you, how do you define authenticity and how do you remain totally in your authentic current self while also thinking about, well, but I'm also wanting to open myself up to the
yeah.
evolutions of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting frame on that question. How can authenticity not become um a cope, an
Hmm.
excuse or yeah. Probably almost anything is capable of being co-opted in that way, any concept. First, let's see like what do I think authenticity is? I'm actually first being drawn to a definition I heard recently from Joe Hudson, who's a coach with this program, The Art of Accomplishment, which I recommend to anyone. But he says something along the lines of authenticity is like a never-ending spiral. So there's no like, there's it. That's my authentic self. I
Hmm.
found it. It's
Hmm.
um it's something that keeps developing and keeps changing. But another way I would think about it, authenticity, let's see. I think the degree I can be authentic is dependent on how much clarity, like sensory clarity and awareness I have about what's happening inside, in air quotes, inside my system, inside my body and my mind. If I don't have awareness, say if I can't even tell that I'm angry at someone, there's no way for me to authentically communicate to them what my anger is trying to communicate. So
Mm.
one component is I have to be aware of what's happening in my system. What are the views that are arising in my mind? What concepts are here about myself or others or the world? And what emotional responses am I having? Maybe there's more to authenticity than this, but I think what thoughts are happening and what emotions are happening has got to be like 80% of it at least. Like what is actually happening here? And that gets so detailed, that gets just like fractally more and more subtle and more beautiful. So part of it is awareness of what's actually happening for me. And then the other part is like living in like truth with and resonance with in correspondence with that what I'm seeing is really true in my inner experience. So if I know that I'm angry at someone, but I'm afraid of they won't be able to handle me being angry, or I'll be a bad person if I show that I'm angry, or, then in a way I'm not being authentic with them, which of course isn't to say to be angry at them, to use my anger to try to control them, but to share with them that I'm angry, this is what I'm angry about, allows us to be in an honest connection, an authentic connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what resonates with me in the idea of what you're saying about really knowing what's going on with you, part of authenticity is also maybe acknowledging that you don't know yourself as well as you think. and that
Yeah.
there's
Oh, yeah, for
always
sure.
room.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the spiral. That's the spiral that never stops. Yeah. Yeah. Always ask the question, what is here? I don't know. I don't know what's here. What might I find? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's a kind of maybe an ignorance or I don't know what other word to use, but maybe a yeah, I mean a kind of ignorance to think that you know with 100% certainty what your authenticity is, so you don't need to
Yeah.
try anything or do anything or you can just say no, I'm already in my authentic. And I think part of it is just saying
Right.
actually, yeah, maybe there's room for me to discover what authentic means in this brain and body. Yeah. So, but I'm piggybacking a little bit on this and this idea of really going deep into oneself, you mentioned also your experiences with psychedelics and using this also as a tool. And I am a huge, huge fan of using plant medicine and using
Mm.
drugs or any other substances in a responsible, empowered fashion
Yeah.
where you are fully intentional about what you're doing. I think it's so funny when you say the word drugs. I mean, I know everyone just shuddered when I even suggested it, but it's funny
Drugs.
because, yeah, but people are so willing to say, people are willing to admit that there are people who are alcoholics and then there are people who
Mhm.
have healthy relationships with alcohol.
Sure.
But somehow with drugs, people really struggle to admit that there is a possibility for using
Yeah.
these things in an empowering way. So I was curious because I'm hoping to do an ayahuasca ceremony
Cool.
soon, which is very different from what you've been using, which is 5-MeO DMT,
Uh-huh.
correct?
Yeah, it's my
Yeah,
recent
and
love.
yeah, and I would love to hear your experience with it because I have very limited. I know that it's a much shorter experience than ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Ayahuasca's like 8 hours or something, and
Yeah.
5-MeO DMT is like what, an hour maximum?
Well, there's no it just depends how long you keep taking it, because there's a
Okay.
minimum in a vaporizer form. A single puff will be in and out of my system in 15, 20 minutes, maybe 20 and the last 5 minutes is very, very, very fine tail, so read like 10, 15 minutes. So
Okay.
I might have a practice session with this medicine that is 10 minutes, and it's amazing that I can have this. It's like having a whole I don't wanna, like, this is always a problem with psychedelics, like, to try and talk about it, you end up overhyping it, but it is so hyped. I don't know. Yeah, there's no it's so worthy of hype at the same time, but, like, it's so hard to um, it's sort of like it's like, wow, I had, like, a whole day-long meditation retreat, and it took me 20 minutes, you know? Um, and that's and again, I have to caveat, they're not those 2 things aren't the same, but there is something really powerful about this tool that can be so brief. And I'll more often practice with it for a half hour or maybe for an hour if I have time. I'm so in control of how deep I go because I take more sips, I go deeper. I take less sips, I don't go as deep. So
And
I'm
what is the
really
experience? What does it feel
yeah.
like? What does it look like? What
Yeah.
is it? What happens?
Yeah. Um trying to decide, do I start from the description that's like describing more details of experience, like, oh, it feels kind of floaty in the body, and it feels like, emotions can move, and tension in the system, in the body, in the mind, which is physical tension, mental tension. It's any kind of thinking that reality should be a certain way, or even that reality is a certain way. Any kind of dualistic concept starts getting dissolved, and it starts with the more gross, the big ones, and it gets down to the more subtle ones. So I was saying, should I start on this like phenomenological describing it level, or should I just go straight to the poetic and say like it's like non-duality in a stick, it's like God's love in a pen, you know? But that probably doesn't help anyone unless they already know what I'm talking about. So I guess I should stick with the
Yeah.
describing it. Um, so another just one other way of thinking about it is like one metaphor I've used is it's sort of like if you get a massage and someone finds a knot and they're like really working into it and it's like whoa, that hurts, but it's like it feels so good though. It's like, oh, I'm finally feeling this tension. It brings the suffering, the dukkha, or the it brings the misalignment with reality into focus. And I can really feel like, whoa, there's something there that I have been wincing against. I've been holding this bracing 24/7, and now I'm feeling it. And now that I feel it, I have the opportunity to like not even to act upon it, but just to witness it. And the witnessing is the same as loving. And in that
Mm,
witnessing, there is space, and in that space, there is release. And it
mm.
just gets so profound so quickly, and it's so beautiful. And I haven't even, many people know this medicine from the full dose, full release experiences, which are wiles to read about. And I haven't even done that yet. I'm so enamored of the low dose practice because it's a practice and I'm not forcing myself anywhere.
And is it very visual? Like, are you seeing lots of things, or are you totally cognizant of your surroundings and it's more just like a internal experience?
At least at the range of dosage I've been working with, it's not very visual. It's a little bit distinct. So this is 5-MeO DMT. There's also NN-DMT, which is what's in ayahuasca, and NN-DMT and psilocybin and psilocybin mushrooms and LSD are all tryptamines, and they are famous for seeing the multiple eyes and the walls breathing, and there's something great about that. But 5-MeO tends to not have as much of that characteristic, like at least that I've seen so far. Go straight to non-duality, do not pass go. Whereas if you're working with mushrooms or ayahuasca, you're like kind of somehow interfacing with this fungal or plant spirit, and there's like lots of other things happening. And there's some people have more visual shamanic sort of minds by nature, and some have less, but even so.
Yeah, I'm very curious about it because I personally find more of the body feel and also internal workings of plant medicine to be more interesting. I've tried substances that are more on the visual realm, and it doesn't land on me somehow, the experiences I've had. So I'm very curious about your experience with it, because also the idea of doing something quicker, low dose, that is more, I don't know, that it's not blasting you out of the universe
Mhm.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very interesting starting point, interesting balance. And
Yeah.
what is your, like, how do you know, okay, this is what I'm called to do now? Like, what's the frequency, or how do you incorporate something like this into a
Hmm.
practice?
At the beginning, it was just all intuition, just whatever intuition dictates. When I first started working with this medicine, I was really terrified of it, I think because of some ayahuasca experiences and other plant medicine experiences, and it took me some time to realize that there was nothing scary about the medicine. It was all just my projection. And so but that projection is still real in a way, so it took some time for that fear to calm down. And then I had a period in the fall of last year where I had a wonderful opportunity where I was able to practice with it almost every day. I would meditate, and then I would do a session with the medicine, and then I would meditate again. It's just such a beautiful sandwich. And in that time, I was just getting to know it. It's like having a relationship with the person. It takes time. It just can't be rushed. And you start slow. You don't jump into living with someone, right away. You get to know them slowly. You see if each other are safe. You see if this is helpful, if I feel good about this. Is this useful? For a while, I would be on the medicine. I would be feeling like this is the most amazing thing. This is extraordinary. And then I would be off the medicine. I would think, gee, did that do anything? Am I just using drugs?
Mm.
Or is this helping or not? And that was an open, I think it's very important to have that inquiry open and to keep it open too, to never arrive at a place of like, nope, I have decided, because there could come a time, maybe I use this medicine for a year or for 10 years. And then it's maybe my body might tell me, my intuition might tell me, my intellect might tell me this has run its course. It's no longer helpful. I mean, cannabis was like that for me. It was very helpful for me at a certain period, and then it really stopped being helpful.
Yeah, and I think that's when drugs, alcohol, any of these plant medicines can become dangerous, is
Yeah.
when you don't treat it like a relationship that will ebb and flow, and
Yeah.
knowing when it's time to be done with it, and also recognizing that the answer is, like you said, these fears you had, the answer is not on the other end of answer's not in the drug. The answer's not
Yeah.
on the other side of the drug. The answer is actually within you. The drug just helped facilitate.
Yeah.
It's the drugs are helping manipulate systems that are already present in you. It just helps to connect you to these things and rewire these things in a deep and profound way. But to go into these experiences thinking that the answer is in the drug, and that without the drug you can no longer benefit, or
Yeah.
you can no longer connect with these things, I think is where people get into some trouble. And do you feel like there is a kind of hygiene around using these kinds of substances, like rules of thumb, things like that?
Yeah. And I don't know if I can make there are probably some, like, too many broad proclaimants for every medicine and every person because
Mhm.
people really do react so differently to different medicines. Some people take ayahuasca for the first time, and then before you know it, they've had it 20 times in the next calendar year, and that's the right
Mhm.
path for them. And for me, it was like, I the last time I had it was 2022, and I don't know when the next time's gonna be, but I it's like it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Um, um, and, um and certainly different substances are prone to misuse or poor hygiene in different ways. So, like, I guess it just the biggest blanket statement is just keeping the question open. We were just saying, like, is this helping me? Is this not helping me? And then there's all kinds of things you can do. Like, you can put containers around it. Like,
Mm.
some people only use cannabis on the weekends. That's a very simple, way that it doesn't get
Mhm.
out of control in their lives. And some people use
Yeah.
cannabis a few times a year, and some people never use it. There's obvious things like most substances, you shouldn't take them while you're driving. There's obvious
Yeah,
hygiene
yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel that people who already struggle with certain, let's say, mental illnesses or certain addictions, are there certain people that you think should not go down the realm of ayahuasca or psychedelics, things like this? Like, are there people this is inherently not for?
I don't know if I'm even qualified to answer necessarily. I'm not like updated on the state of the research, and different people in the field might have different opinions. I definitely think it's pretty individual. Like, someone who is in a place where they're like, I want to get to the bottom of this. I'm willing to like come to Jesus moment, so to speak. Like, I want to know, I want to find out. Like, that is a good state of mind to take mushrooms or ayahuasca in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm scared of everything. I mean, you can be scared of everything and want to find out. So it's hard to say. But like, the internal motivation to use one of these medicines is one of the best indicators for me about it being likely a good fit. Um, Like, another thing people say is, like, the mental imbalances that are more like things being too tight, like anxiety and depression, tend to benefit greatly from psychedelics, which open things. The mental disorders that tend to be more like things being too open, like schizophrenia, are more dangerous.
Okay.
And I'm still don't know how to make a blanket statement there. It's just not my field of expertise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think on a more simplistic level, you're also speaking to like intention. You have to know yourself.
Yeah.
You have to know yourself. You have to know how to be empowered and how to be realistic about who you are and what you're needing support in,
Yeah.
and creating an intentional container with boundaries, with support from a community or sangha or something. You should not you should go into everything with such intention and with
Yeah.
such thoughtfulness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to just ask, before we wrap up, because I'm just so impressed. You've built this incredible practice brick by brick. And I hope you're aware of how far you've come, because I find it so deeply inspiring and very impressive. But I'm wondering, like, where are you now in this journey? Like, what do you feel like is your next step or your
Yeah.
next obstacle, or where are you?
Yeah, thanks, Sophia. Thanks for reflecting that to me. It's really sweet to hear. Right now, my focus for the last like several months and going forward in terms of my personal practice is a lot of things that we might put under the category of like integration or like like things that happen just like really on the human psychological level, interpersonal level, like relational practices that are designed to help one practice vulnerability or help one practice impartiality, like not trying to control myself or the other, or things like um I've done a lot of sitting still with emotions, and I've learned a huge amount from that, and I haven't done as much practicing expressing emotions. So I'm in some
Mm,
practices now with people, and it really helps to do this with people of like accessing really deep anger or really deep fear.
mm,
I go to my car for these calls because they get loud and I don't want to bother my hosts. And
yeah.
like finding this anger that's been there since childhood, finding this fear that's been there, you know, and making the noises and moving and there's something about that like it I think it just moves energy in a way that it's I don't know if it's impossible, probably not impossible. Probably a lot of the like visualization energy body, tantra type practices maybe do the same sorts of things, I would think. But for me, this is the route that I've found that's really working for me, is like this like out loud expression. And then another area is working with attachment wounding, and there's a technique called ideal parent figure meditation, which I'm working with a coach to help me practice this, because it's really hard to do on my own, because it gets into very deep places of like, a sense of safety that hasn't been there since I was X months old. It's like, can I find that safety and cultivate it? And it's a visualization practice. So to me, those sorts of things have felt really rewarding and really appealing. And also, like, my hypothesis is they're also kind of bottlenecking a lot of my deeper development in areas like concentration practice and insight practice. So that's what I'm working on, I would say.
Once the journey starts, it just keeps going. There's
Hmm.
no endpoint. I have a tantra mentor who always says the obstacle is the way, you
Yeah.
know?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's always an obstacle. There's always like a next step, and it's part of it. It's the never-ending journey towards self-realization, self-love, and ultimately, I find that this has really become the most important work, because you mentioned something in our correspondences about outer success. And, I think we live in a society that deeply values outer success, like productivity, sales, money, things like that. Ultimately, any work that is done to create the brightest, most self loving version of yourself is really the greatest outer success, because you are walking the world, you are affecting everyone and everything around you in the most positive, bright light. And I think that's where the success is. You are someone who, just from a Twitter post, I could feel some of that brilliance. So I hope you carry that with you and are never too, too concerned about your journey is beautiful. And I just want you to know that, like, I can feel your journey even just through like a Twitter post. So I'm very grateful for you and the work you've done to create this practice, and how it's already benefiting the world, and everything you touch and everything
Mm.
around you is benefiting.
Thank you, Sophia.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
And I also want to acknowledge that you do offer meditation coaching. Would you
Sure.
call it
Yeah.
coaching?
Coaching, I
Uh,
don't know, the word's not so important. Coaching,
yeah,
teaching, talking,
guidance. Yeah,
friend being, yeah.
and this is on kind of a donation basis.
That's my current setup, yeah. So people write to me and just ask if they can have a call, and sometimes some people I work with ongoingly, some people just have a one-off call with, and donations are very appreciated, and at least right now, I have space to just meet people. I mean, like, money is a whole thing. Talk about like areas of shadow and things to integrate.
Yeah,
There's so much there, and I'm really kind of happy to be like facing that a little bit more directly than I used to be. But
yeah,
so yeah, donations are appreciated and not necessary. And then
yeah.
I'm also teaching an online course soon. I'm not sure when this episode will go up, but
Yes, you told me. I saw you wrote that you're creating a course. So tell
huh.
me the details of this course. What could one expect?
Yeah, it's a 8-week program. It's called Meditation Fundamentals: Practicing for a Free Heart. And over the 8 weeks, there'll be 8 90-minute group sessions, which will feature, some discussion, some talking from me, and some discussion with all of us, and Q&A, and guided meditations, and other kinds of support, group support. And then I'm actually meeting with every participant one-on-one for an individual session every week for 45 minutes. So I'll be a very busy week,
Oh,
busy eight
amazing.
weeks for me.
Yes.
And the intention of the course is to just focus on, beginning of our conversation, we talked about some of the just like fundamental meditative benefits and skills. And so my hope is to just kind of support people in being aware of those and learning a few techniques that are closely related, but also have a little bit of variety, so that, different people find different kinds of starting points effective. Some people will really love loving kindness practice, and some people, it takes them 8 years to go anywhere near loving kindness practice. So I want
Yeah.
to give people a bit of a variety and just support them in having a daily practice that is serving them and that they enjoy and want to do.
Beautiful. And so if
Mhm.
someone wants to get in your orbit and learn more about this, what's the best way to contact you?
I should make a website one day, but I don't have one. So they could certainly email me. I'm happy to just put my email in the show notes. It's my name, Daniel Brottman at gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at Daniel Brottman, and you can see my daily ramblings there or DM me, send me a message. And then I'm also on Substack at, I think it's just Daniel Brottman at Substack or .substack.com or whatever. Yeah, those are all great places to reach me. And there's a link in the bio of my Twitter, or any of the my 4 most recent Substack posts also have a link to the sign up for the meditation course. And if you're listening to this after April 12th and the course has begun already, still feel free to get in touch. And I'm hoping to offer this course again in the future if it goes well. I'm like very nervous and excited about this course, but I think it'll go well. And then if so, I'd like to do it again. So I'd still love to hear from anyone who's interested in it.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt it's going to be really incredible and that you're going to really shape some very important times for the people. I mean, you will
Mhm.
find your people, they will be drawn to you, and
Mhm.
you'll have
Yeah.
exactly the right sangha to work with. So
Yes.
I'm very excited to keep up with you and see how it's going.
Thank you,
So
Sophia.
thank you so much for spending some time with me and also supporting my new venture. I really appreciate
Oh
it.
my God, congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You are just I knew very early on you were probably one of the actually probably the first person I contacted to invite because I just thought that is the energy. This is the kind of people. These are the people. These are the people that I want to give as much platform to as possible. So thank you so much for being on with me. And let's stay in touch. I really
100%.
want to know how this all keeps going and maybe we can meditate together sometime.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, Daniel, thanks so much. Talk soon. Bye. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our second episode ever of Modern Muses. I absolutely loved talking to Daniel. I got so much out of this conversation. And I have fantastic news for you if this conversation is one that you'd like to continue, because Daniel is actually now offering a meditation course. It's called Meditation Fundamentals, Practicing for a Free Heart. It's happening in the fall of 2025. All the information is in the show notes below, so be sure to check that out if you're someone who would really love to build a first-time meditation practice or continue on building on the practice you already have. Daniel has more than 12 years of experience and he's just a wonderful person to study with, so I highly recommend it. Other than that, I would love to hear in the comments below what you got out of this conversation, and consider subscribing to the channel and following the show. We are going to have many, many more inspiring, thought-provoking conversations, and I would love for you to be a part of it. So, with that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day wherever you are. Talk soon. Bye.